Well, hello, my friends. I am back with something kind of fun to show you today. This is a game called Ex Novo, and it's a city building game. And the idea is you want to generate a playable settlement or cities for use in other creative endeavors. I picked this up because I thought I saw a review of it that it was a really cool way to sort of jumpstart your imagination for creative writing if you want to maybe come up with a really cool setting to place some characters, or if you were going to play like a role-playing game and you wanted to create a city or a land that you could then populate and have adventures in. Now my friend over at Geek Gamers, she does the most amazing stuff. She showcases solo role-playing games. That's right, you can role-play with just yourself. You don't need a DM, you don't need anyone else sitting around the table with you. But in one of her more recent videos, she talked about the fact that in order to make this work, the idea of a solo role-playing game, you really needed to ground your game in a sense of world building, right? I think she said you needed a time, place, and people, right? And then like a quest item if you wanted to go down that path. But when she was talking about it, it reminded me of Ex Novo. It reminded me of this really cool print and play I had downloaded a while ago. And I thought, wow, I think something like this would work really well for what she was talking about. So I'll link her video below if you want to go check out some solo role-playing. It's very cool stuff. Or if you're just looking for a creative exercise, which is why I grabbed this in the first place. I got it online. It's usually between like maybe $5 and $10 is what you pay, and you just print it out yourself and then you run with it. I'll, of course, link where I got this. But I think this is such a cool way sort of to just be creative and, you know, sit down and come up with something, right? So you need, obviously, the printout. You need 3 6-sided dice to randomly generate some features. You need a couple of little tokens to kind of keep track of who's in power and what's going on in your city, and a lovely little pencil. I'm going to upgrade and use some markers because I have discovered it's really hard to see pencil on a camera from far away, and I don't want to frustrate you all and make you mad. I also just keep I'll keep some notes because as our city grows and develops, it'll be really nice to be able to go back and be like, oh, right. This is how we got here because this event led to that event that led to this discovery, or however it peels out. So let's build a city. And I was thinking, sort of part 1 of this is you sit down and you have a discussion phase. And this is when everyone at the table, that would be you and me, would decide what sort of genre we're in, right? Because if I'm building a sci-fi space exploration and you're building a wild, wild west steampunk land, our city is going to look really weird, right? So you have to kind of come up with a uniformed genre. And of course, for our first city together, we have to go high fantasy. Think elves, think dwarves, think dragons, think guilds and wizardry and mages and all that sort of stuff. And that in mind, it'll kind of dictate how we're going to interpret the events of our city. You are allowed at any point in this building scenario to throw out what you get if it doesn't fit and grab something else. So if we do roll up something that involves, you know, vehicles or something odd like that, we can just say, nope, not our world, and roll again. This is a free-form play, okay? So once we have discussed our setting assumptions, we're going to move on and we're going to get to 2 areas that we're not going to roll for. We're going to get to pick these areas. The first is our target size. The second is our target age. And this will determine how complex our city is and how long we want to spend in this creative process. So, rule set, that's great. But the other part of this game is, of course, a massive set of tables. And they are all based on a roll of 1 to 3 d6. So in this case, we're going to roll we would roll a single d6 and pick our size. We don't have to roll for this one because we get to decide the size of our city. And I think if you're if you're going to start a game or you're going to start a story, I feel like your adventurers need a home base, right? They need some place where their favorite tavern is, where the towers of sorcery is established, where the local guilds are. You know, we need their home base, right, from which they're going to get their quests and be launched out into the world. So I would say we're not a village, we're not a town, we're not a small city. I think we're on this side here. I think we're either in a medium city, a large city, or a metropolis. I would probably do a metropolis, but I don't want this video to be too long. So let's just go for a large city. Big enough to be the capital of a nation and to hold at least one university. That sounds about right. And our first directions of the game: split the map with 13 lines, set aside 18 citizen tokens. So I just grab some little tokens. I'll make sure I have 18 of these. And we're going to split the map with 13 lines. You can get a ruler out if you like and make your 13 lines very, very straight. You can just go free form and go crazy with your 13 lines. I think because we're in an established city, I kind of feel like I am going to pull out a ruler here, because I feel like our grids, our city is going to be pretty, well developed. This isn't a new settlement with things sprawling out randomly. I'm hoping for like a nice, compact, dense, kind of makes sense city. So let's give our city 2 major cross streets. Our first 2 lines I'm going to make nice and straight here. And that's going to be sort of the heart of our city. All right. How many did I say I have to do? A lot, right? 13. Oh my gosh. All right. So we need 11 more. All right. For the rest of them, they can be a little more organic, I think. I don't think they have to be completely straight from here on out. So that's 1, 2. Let's go like 3, 4, 13. Oh my goodness. All right. So these are the grids of our city, and we will be drawing events and locations and factions in them, and we're going to flesh this out till we get our new land. Okay, so we have done target size. All right, 18 tokens. Let me grab those. Okay, so we have our 18 tokens that we're going to use throughout the game. Got it. All right, target size done. Next up is target age. And again, we get to pick this. The age of the settlement. This will determine how old the settlement will be when the game ends. All right. Pick an entry from the table. Additional target age determines how many development phases you will play, and it will determine how long the game is. Okay, so we're going to pick an entry, mark the number of development phases in a timeline or a note card. We're going to do the note card option. So once again, we get to decide for our little city, or I should say large city that we're creating. How old is this city? Again, we're not on this side. We're not nestling, budding, grown. Maybe we're grown. We're definitely, I'm going to say over here, aged, elderly, or ancient. No, we're not going to be ancient or elderly. Let's make ourselves an aged city. At a few hundred years of urban development, this city has gone through its fair share of turmoil. That sounds like it'll generate a lot of really cool storylines. The other one is grown. At its respectable age, the city has seen a handful of generations live and die. All right, the main difference is we're going to get 10 development phases, so we're going to roll 10 times and get 10 random events, or we can be aged and roll 14 times and get 14 development events. Let's just go with grown. Again, I might do aged, but this is going to take 14 is a lot. So let's go ahead and just mark 10 development phases for our city. All right, so we are a grown, large city. Fabulous. And that's going to give us 10 development phases. So I'm going to go over here and mark out 10 phases. All right, so now comes the fun part. We're going to start rolling some dice. We're going to move into the founding phase. This is where we figure out how, when, and why our beautiful, lovely metropolis city was originally made. And we're going to go through a bunch of different steps, rolling and looking, checking our little tables that are included. We're going to look for some major geography, some terrain features, our location, why it was settled, who settled it, what was the original power structure, who lived in it originally, and then we're going to name our city last of all. So this is the fun part. Let's begin with geography. This is major geography. Why was this region founded where it was? We're going to roll once, and then we're going to draw that shape. Okay, so we're going to be looking for one major terrain feature. We're going to be rolling 2d6, looking for a number between 2 and 12. So we're going to be adding the results of our die together, and we're going to get a 6. Hills, all right. Rolling, rocky or rugged, wide vistas or dappled in forest, what songs of this land do the people sing? Draw at least 2 sizable hills, each at least 2 regions big. Okay, so let's go to our map. And a region, of course, is one of these little squares. And we need to somehow plop in here 2 hills that are at least 2 regions large. And I think what we're going to do, I kind of like the idea of making them some of the bigger regions, just, because that seems to make sense to me. So let's go ahead and pick these 2 here. And for now, I think we're going to put in some rugged hills. What's in these hills? We don't know yet. We're going to find out. But we know that our city is relatively flat, except for 2 regions where we have a bunch of rugged hills. Let's figure out why in a minute, because next we're going to head to terrain features. And here it's going to say times 4. So we're going to roll 4 times on the terrain table. We're going to discover a new feature, add it to the map. All right, 4 times. Got it. Again, 2d6. So we're just going to be adding these bad boys together. And let's see, what features do we come up with? A 7. A river. Okay, there's a river. An 8. A lake. A 3. Ooh, caves. Well, now we know what's in the hills. And a 6. Okay, caves, wood, river, lake. So these are going to be smaller features that we get to sparse out in our plot here. So obviously, come on now. We got these rugged hills. There has to be a cave. And I think maybe it's a connected cave system. I think that would be really cool. And of course, it's the perfect place to send your adventurers. So we're going to make a little cave entrance here in one of these. I'll figure this out and draw it better in a second, but this is going to be one cave entrance. It's going to come up here. And the other cave entrance is going to come out maybe down here. And we suddenly have a great place for our adventurers to go through. Okay, so that's our caves. We also need some woods. Let's do the river and the lake next. For the river, a small branching river or a large meandering one? What travels on this river? Seems to make sense that the river would go between the 2 hilly areas, correct? So let's send our river, maybe our river will just follow this particular divide line right here. This is going to be our meandering river that comes down here like so. We also need a lake. So I'm going to say maybe coming off of this hilly area, it drains into a big, beautiful lake. That's going to be also down here. Maybe the lake will come off of the river, or the river could go to the lake. That's kind of a cool idea. And let's make a second water area as well. This little hilly area is going to drain down into a nice, beautiful lake that we're going to put here. Feeds into our lake here. And we need a wooded area. Seems to me around the lake, I'm going to say this sort of area around here is going to be our wooded area. Okay, cool. So let me draw that in. So we have sort of our little setup for our geography. We have our rugged hills with a connecting cave system, a lake, and a forest area, and a nice river running through it. Okay, gone ahead and just sort of mark that down on our little city building list so we can keep track of what we're doing. Next up, we need a founding location. Okay, so what about this place was special enough to found a settlement? Access to a useful trade route, terrain that's easy to fortify or defend, roll on the location table, draw a related landmark or resource. Oh, okay, let's see what that table is. Purpose. Okay, so we have some really cool purposes here. Ruins, a travel route, a trade route, natural resources, abundant plants or animals. It's defensible, it's strategic, culturally important. Ooh, okay, again, if we want, we could probably just pick one. Well, let's go ahead and roll 2 and see what they give us. If we do it this way, it is because of useful natural resources. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so looking at our map here, we need a useful natural resource, which is why people came here in the first place. So let's think about this. Our setting is sort of high fantasy. We have these wonderful caves up here. I'm gonna say that originally we had maybe dwarves. Let's put some dwarves here originally who were miners and were mining out this cave system for some sort of precious, we could say gems could be our resource, or we could say some sort of metal. I like the idea of maybe some sort of super strong, durable metal. So let's say that this original area was founded by dwarves. And I think the feeling of it being sort of nature, lake, right? We've got a really good system here. But let's go ahead and say that we have, what was it? A useful natural resource. And we're gonna say, our resource we're going to add to the map, since it is some kind of metal, we'll just make it gray and we'll put it in the shape of, how about a nice star? I think that would work. So this little area here, and maybe up here as well, we can say we have our first resource, which is this valuable metal that's coming out of the hills. Okay, cool. Settlement decision. Who initiated the founding of the settlement? The options range from an accident all the way to divine commandment. Roll on the table, draw the first settlement district, move 1 citizen token from the pool to the city. Place it close to your settlement. All right, so we know for us it's going to be dwarves in this case, but let's roll and see what sent them to this location in the first place. Okay, that is decision. Another 2 to 12, and we might pick and choose on this one a little bit just to make it fit with our current scenario. A 2 by accident. Oh, maybe this would work. A shipwreck or a simple camp that somehow turned into a town. How did this happen and who was responsible for the accident? Add the first district, move 1 citizen token to the city. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we have our first story if we want to right now stop and come up with. This would be a great one, is how did the first dwarf get here? It was completely by accident. Maybe they were just coming down the river here and for some reason they shipwrecked or they had a problem with their raft and they pulled over, found this little cave system to spend the night, to get out from the elements, and discovered veins of this beautiful metal. Maybe by starlight, right? I could see a little dwarven party lying in the cave, and maybe the moon or the stars come out, and when the moonlight hits the side of the cave wall, this metal lights up, and they know immediately that they've found star metal or moon metal or something amazing like that. But I think it's going to be just a traveling hunting party that somehow hits maybe rapids. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Right here in the middle of our river, we're going to add some rocks because there are some nasty rapids right here in the middle of the river. And you would never know it until you come around this corner. And by then it's too late, okay? So this is a super tranquil river, except for right here where we have a bunch of rocks. And in the middle of all these rocks, we're going to have a broken ship. This was the original ship that the settlers came down, and it crashed. And they ended up heading to the mountains. Or, sorry, not the mountains, the hills where they discovered at night this magical, wonderful metal. All right, I like that. That's a story I can get behind. Okay, so we know where we are. We know how we got there. Now we have to figure out our starting hierarchy. So our dwarfs settled here, but what power structure of the community, what does that look like? How the people got there, draw their path, and the vehicle that got them there. Well, we kind of jumped ahead and did that, but let's roll on the power hierarchy table, and then we'll put in our route that the settlers came from. This table's a little smaller, it's just a D6, that's easy enough. We are, boom, unstructured collective, basic village communism or rampant anarchy. How do people deal with outsiders or dissidents? Draw the route that led them here. That kind of makes sense to me, right? These guys weren't looking for a new land. They weren't fleeing persecution. They weren't a settlement group looking to expand the horizons. This was just like a random hunting party that stumbled upon this desirable place and plopped down. So they didn't bring with them any sort of established governance, all right? So we are going just to be unstructured at this point. We're just a bunch of people. How we got here? Well, we've kind of already done that. We knew that we came down the river here. We'll just do a little dash line. I guess we came from up here or over here. Let's do it from over here. That sounds good to me. We came from off the edge of the map, so who knows? Something this direction is civilization. Some sort of dwarven kingdom lies this direction on the map, because that's where our people came from. What lies upriver, we don't know. But we know that that direction is a dwarven kingdom. And our people crashed, and we're going to say that their first settlement they made, let's make it right here, kind of on the edge of the hills and the forest and the river and the lake. This seems like our starting settlement. And so I'm going to, let's see, just going to outline this really quick. Boom, boom, boom. And here it is, our first settlement. And we're going to add 1 citizen token to the map. Community factions. Ooh, let's get some conflict in here, right? How power is shared or split within the community. This will produce a number of factions. Okay, roll on the table. Note the name and the symbol, draw a landmark, move a citizen token, keep doing this as many times as indicated. Ooh, okay, power factions, got it. And this little table is a smaller one, it's just a D6. Let's see what power factions we end up with. 2, seeds of dissent. 2 factions, one in control, the other newly born. What questionable decision led to this faction, or did values diverge? Okay, seeds of dissent. Ooh. So what would that mean for our little city? So we know that they were just a group of maybe hunting dwarves, ranging dwarves. They didn't have any sort of established system or power hierarchy, so it's more like one for all and all for one. They landed here by accident and they discovered something amazing. And I think our 2 factions that we're going to make here is we're going to have one faction, maybe some of the dwarves were loyal to where they came from. And they want to claim this territory for the Dwarven Kingdom. And we're going to say some of the other dwarves here were like, hey, we've come across something good. We found it. Finders keepers, losers weepers. What if we establish our own city, a sister city, a neighbor city maybe, but not directly under the rule of thumb of the original Dwarven Kingdom, but an off branch or an offshoot of it. So let's give ourselves 2 dwarven factions. And let's call one maybe the Loyalists, and we'll make one Independence maybe. Faction number 1 we know is going to be the Loyalists. We have our 2 factions. It says, draw a landmark for the faction, move a citizen token from the city to the faction in power, change active player, create a note card landmark for each remaining faction. Okay, so we have to come up with a landmark or a logo or something for each of the factions, and we're going to give each of them a little counter to show that they have, you know, people in them. All right, so the Loyalists, that seems pretty easy. I feel like they're just going to be a picture of a crown. That makes the most sense. The Independents, let's give them the wings of a bird. That seems pretty cool. Actually looks like an inverted crown, so that kind of worked rather well. All right, so we have, this is where they originally landed. Are we supposed to grow it? Let me check. So we have to decide who's in power right now. And I think for now, I think this will be an interesting conflict. Let's say that right now the Loyalists are in power. Let's say that we haven't had a revolution yet. We haven't had sort of the breaking away of the city from the larger Dwarven kingdom. So let's put the Loyalists in power. And the Independents, you know, they're a little dissident voice. They're maybe a growing community. We'll see what happens here. But the Loyalists right now are in power. So they are going to be in charge of this cube here. So in here we're going to have 2 factions going on right now. So when the city was founded, we have 2 distinct voices, and right now the one that's in the lead is the Loyalists. Okay, and I think with that, let me double check. I'm pretty sure the last thing we need to do is name our city, and we're ready to begin our random events and grow and develop what happens. So our city name. Well, I think it has to be something to do with this metal, this magical metal that we've found. So let's give the metal some sort of cool name. Let's call it Lunalight. Here we go. The grown city of Lunalight, because that's what it's going to be known for. All right, so this is it. We have the beginnings of our land. We have our regions. We know how we got here. We know why we got here, and we have an initial conflict already going on in this city. You can see right now, even before we roll any events, you could very easily start an adventure here. You could start in the caves. You can kind of figure out, you could have somebody coming in trying to take over the mining operation. You have the rivalry between the factions of who are we aligning ourselves with. We have this wonderful, valuable resource that I'm sure a lot of people want to get their hands on, and we have this unknown area up here on the river that we don't know who lives up there, or who we could find that might also conflict with what we have going on. Pretty cool, right? And all we've done is just begin, because remember, we still get to develop this little town through 10 distinct phases. So let's start there.